The shift to remote work has left so many of us divided. Some of us want to go back to the office full time, others don't want to see the office ever again, and there's a third group who want to go back maybe a couple of days a week. Now, each approach has its own pros and cons, but there's one thing that's been consistently overlooked since the pandemic took hold of our working lives. For millions of people around the world, their daily commute has been reduced to a walk from the bedroom to the study. And with that, the amount of sunlight that they get exposed to in a typical day has come crashing down. And this can come at a significant cost to our sleep, to our mood, and to our focus at work. In this episode, I'm going to explore the benefits of sunlight and how you can incorporate more of it into your day to be your absolutely best self. But before we get into that, if you're picking up what I'm putting down, take a moment to like, share, or subscribe. Now, sunlight has often been vilified in the media as the bringer of skin cancer. And while this is true, the World Health Organization actually found that ultraviolet rays from the sun are actually responsible for just 0.1% of the global disease burden. Despite the downsides, direct sunlight exposure plays a number of key roles in regulating our physical and emotional health. So let's unpack what these benefits are. Number one, improved immunity and overall health. Now, direct sunlight exposure stimulates vitamin D synthesis, which is fundamental to immune, bone, nervous system, lung, and cardiovascular health. Now, a study published in Oxford Academics, the Journal of Nutrition, actually called the global deficiency of vitamin D an epidemic. Now, here in Australia, where I live, despite our lucky-go nature, our beach-loving culture, a quarter of the population are actually deficient in vitamin D. These statistics are actually more concerning in the United States, where about 41% of people are deficient in vitamin D. That extends to 63% of Hispanic Americans and 82% of African Americans. Interestingly, one study published in JAMA found that of 489 COVID-19 patients, about 80% were deficient in vitamin D. Interestingly, the researchers also found that the risk of testing positive for COVID-19 was 1.77 times greater for people that were vitamin D deficient. That's almost twice the risk. Number two, emotional regulation. Now, a 2008 study by Nathaniel Mead found that exposure to sunlight has a number of emotional benefits. The sun's ultraviolet rays increase the body's production of endorphins, which is a natural opiate. It ultimately relieves stress, pain, and can produce a feeling of euphoria, also known as the runner's high, the same buzz you get after running a few kilometers. Not only that, but UVR has also been found to modulate serotonin, which is involved in mood regulation. This is one of the reasons why light therapy has gained prominence in recent decades as an intervention for treating mood and psychiatric disorders. Number three, improved cognitive function and focus. Now, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, is something I've explored previously on this show. Now, it's a key molecule involved in functions such as memory, alertness, and learning. Now, a 2012 study published in PLOS ONE by Mark Mollendijk and his team of researchers actually found a correlation between ambient light exposure and concentrations of BDNF. A separate 1987 study also found that sunlight exposure increases noradrenaline, which ultimately helps to make us feel a lot more alert in the moment. Finally, a large study that was published in Environ Health in 2009 looked at 16,800 participants in a national cohort study of blacks and whites aged 45 and over. Now, they found a strong association between decreased exposure to ultraviolet rays and increased risk of cognitive impairment and symptoms of depression. Now, this brings me to my next point. Number four, improved job satisfaction. A 2016 study by Mi-Hung Ahn and her team of researchers, also published in PLOS ONE, found that natural elements in one's workplace have a direct impact on how workers feel and perform. Elements such as sunlight were associated with decreased levels of diastolic blood pressure, depression, and anxiety, and increased attentional capacity, something we explored in a previous episode when talking about working memory, attentional resources, and how anxiety suppresses both of these. You can find a link to that up above. Now, the researchers also found that workers with views of nature, whether it's a beach or a landscape, a natural landscape of some kind, they tend to discount the future less, which is an attribute associated with improved mental health and healthier lifestyles. Number 5, improved sleep. Now, sleep is Mother Nature's ultimate biohack, and it plays a number of key roles in regulating our physical and emotional health. Now, a 2018 study which looked at the link between vitamin D deficiency and sleep found that there is a strong association between the two. A lack of vitamin D was typically associated with sleep disorders. Now, sunlight exposure to the eye's retina plays a key role in regulating our sleep and in healthy sleeping patterns. Now, as Andrew Huberman, tenured professor of neuroscience at Stanford, likes to say, getting sunlight in your eyes early in the morning is fundamental to good sleep and in regulating your circadian rhythm. What it does is it ultimately sets your biological clock. If I get direct sunlight exposure in my eyes at say 7 a.m., about 14 hours later, my brain will begin to release melatonin, which will begin the process of powering down and getting me ready to fall asleep a couple of hours later. So this is why when you're going for a walk in the morning, you might want to take your sunglasses off. And if you're wondering whether or not sunlight exposure behind a window, behind your car's windscreen is enough, no, it's not. The window will actually decrease the amount of ultraviolet rays significantly. So you've got to get that direct sunlight exposure, no windows, no sunglasses, first thing in the morning or when you wake up effectively. So what do we do about this? Well, let's explore some hacks to help you get more sunlight into your day, to help you become more focused, but also to help regulate your emotional and physical health. Number 1, direct sunlight exposure in the morning. So you've got to get that direct sunlight exposure when you wake up, preferably within 30 minutes of waking up, so that you can help to set that circadian rhythm. Of course, I'm not suggesting that you look directly at the sun. That's never a good thing and something we all learned when we were little kids, but just looking at the sky, because there will be a lot of light energy and photons throughout the sky. So don't look at the sun, but look near, around the sun. Just get some of that energy into your eyes. Even if it's an overcast day, it will still work. Number 2, supplement with vitamin D. Now, if you're not getting enough natural sunlight, taking a few vitamin D pills each day, even if it's 1 UI 1000 or even up to UI 10,000, will help to obviously bolster your vitamin D levels. Now, one thing I will say on that is take that vitamin D upon waking up, because it's like getting sunlight. You don't want to trick your brain into thinking that you just woke up when you take that vitamin D late at night, because that will mess with your circadian rhythm and might impair your sleep. Number 3, use a vitamin D lamp. Now, this is something that not only will help you boost your vitamin D, but if it's something that you have at your desk, will improve your spirits while you're trying to work, particularly if you work in a workspace which is perhaps a little bit dark, perhaps doesn't get enough natural light, because ultimately, as we learned in that study on natural elements in the workplace, natural light, landscapes, things of that nature will put us in a better mood. And when we're in a better mood, when we feel less anxious, we have more attentional resources, we have more access to working memory, we're able to focus, and we're able to do our best work. So I'll have a link in the show notes to some vitamin D supplements as well as a vitamin D lamp for your reference. With that, I'm going to bring this episode of Workflow to a close. I'm out of here to get some vitamin D. See you later.